And we are live, everybody.
Yeah.
Today is October 18th on this Sunday afternoon. At least for us, it is, Jono. I have no idea what it could possibly be for you.
Wednesday of 2021. He's through the crazy 2020s.
It's not too bad. 20 to 11. So I'm still awake.
Oh, so not even midnight yet. That's okay.
There we go.
All right, let me put this link out there. And yeah, I'm actually going to get off, but K-Pro and Jono and whoever else K-Pro wants to add can discuss for a while.
Yeah, that'll be fun because I kind of know how to do that, but Mike's kind of my right hand on that, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, we're gonna give you guys a few minutes. I'm gonna kind of ignore the chat a little bit because this is what Jono and I were thinking of doing yesterday on GTC show, but by the time I got on, there was a big panel and we didn't get to banter about like we were intending. So I think Greg did a great show, but we decided Jonas had a lot of questions, and he's from across the pond. If you don't know Jono, when he talks, you're going to love it. And so he wanted to ask questions, and I trust him enough just to come on live and go, ask away. The only thing I've asked him not to ask, we've kind of prepared, is the finder's name or like address or any identifying information of the source. Other than that, it's kind of fair game. I might have to say, can't answer. And if you're totally over this subject and you're like, you've talked about it too much, this is not the show for you. And join us on Monday night when we're going to talk about something else. I don't know what. Mike and I haven't lined up the next show yet, but this is going to be about the famous GPS solve. We do also talk the bronze dog sniffing solve. Whatever you want to call it. I call it
or infamous. I don't know which one.
I could call it the confirm solve, but that would make people lose their mind. We don't want that.
I did put 4 exclamation points on the title.
Oh no.
All right, I'm going to get off. You guys take it away. I will be back in a little while. Have fun.
Okay. And I have gotten okay, so I should probably stay it up to front. Dad is not doing okay. And actually I needed to give Dad a little bit more time to there was an incident last night, so he's not doing as well today. So I actually am going to go visit the hospital later today. So thank you for all your warm wishes and nice notes. But I don't have better news. It's actually, I got to see him right before there was actually a little turn of the worst. So I'll get more updates later tonight and tomorrow. I'm glad I got to see him. If this is the last time, I don't know yet. But anyway, so he's not conscious yet. So once he is, I will be able to see him. But we got to do some treasure talk, which is kind of my favorite thing. It gets me that that I'm not going to worry about the hard parts of my life. I'm just going to have fun sitting with Brit Chaser. So
an hour or so of escape. That's what we're
exactly.
There you go.
Get on here, please. Okay, so where do you want to start? Probably nobody knows what we're even talking about. This GPS solve. What is that?
Do you know what? The way I thought we could do it is, so I'm a skeptic. So like with any solve, and I think I've probably had about 4 that I've really loved, and probably about 9 altogether. And for each of them, I've tried to prove it, but I've also tried to disprove it as part of it. And I'm sure that lots of people do that with their own solves. So you spend a lot of time, especially when you're getting ready to go boots on the ground or it's winter months and you have to wait, you spend a lot of time trying to disprove to make sure it's the right thing to do. So we should do that with this one. That's what I thought we'd do.
I like that.
So I think the hardest thing that I'm finding people are having with this is that you take what Forrest has said over the years and you build up an intuition around what you think is involved in the hunt, what the rules of the game are, and there's a little bit of leeway, but most people feel like they know what it's all about. So you see a lot of solves that are pretty much the 9 clues. We kind of know what the 9 clues are, we think, and we try and marry them to places on a map. Some people go a bit further and take his words around. It takes you to the riddle, so they're less literal around things, but they still follow the 9 clues.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that the first clue definitely has to be warm water, in some way. Some people have said that it could be something metaphorical, or it could be so. But most people think about that as being the first clue. So some of the things, I guess, that really leads to believe that are where Forrest said things like 9 the locations of the 9 clues. He said that in a couple of different sentences. So the 9 locations on a map. So that immediately comes to mind when you think of this. And the other thing that seems to go well with that is when he said there are no shortcuts. So the gut feel is the GPS feels like a shortcut. So that's the first thing that triggers alarms. And you think, oh, I'm not so sure about this.
Well, let's talk about that, because I'm having that same thought that, so there's a debate with, from what I understand, well, lots of people, let's just say, but the source and others, we have the GPS where there are actually 9 places, let's say. And this is where I get into the quote. I'm starting to pick a lot of Forrest quotes, and I will tell you, a lot of them is confirmation bias. I know this. But do you remember the one where he said, and I might not get it exactly right, let's coin a new phrase. You can have a general solve, but unless it takes you to an exact spot, that's the exact solution. So there's a general solve and an exact solve. I think that may have been the quote where he was saying, this is double encoded. You'll have an exact GPS, but you'll also have these 9 clues from where warm water salt, let's say that's I said to the canyon, to the Homer Brown, to me, to all the way down to Blaze, look quickly down. But you're not going to get to the exact spot without the GPS. That's why I think Forrest could have been contradictory. Some of his quotes, it's like, that doesn't make sense. You answered this way. He might have been answering exact or general, and both are right. But unless we knew about the double encoding, we didn't know that he could be answering 2 different ways. You know what I mean?
Yep. That'd be very slippery. Very slippery.
I
But
know.
Who knows? Who knows? So one of the things that's going through my mind is, how quickly do you give up on a solve and what goes into that? So imagine you'd got this, and let's say you hadn't got the 0.2. So we know that was 700 feet out. So you go there a few times. Have you got confidence or not? Who knows at this point? You go there, you look around, you try and brute force it, and you just don't find it. And you do that 25 times.
Right.
Would you do that? Or would you say, do you know what? It was nice, but I'm going to give up on it, actually. And does that lead to there's something else that just gave them confidence to stick with it? They just knew and thought, it's me, I'm at fault.
Well, so I think that frustration came out, I'm going to ballpark here because I don't know exact numbers, but a few years ago. I think 2015, 2016, 2017. This is me surmising a few things and putting together between Forrest words, source words, and the finder's information that's out. And I think a group of people started looking at this in a different, they all knew they were looking at the poem in the same way through homophones, etc. And that might be from a forum or a Facebook or a this or a that. Maybe they went to an event. Oh, you're working on homophones. So am I. How are you doing it? And I think they threw up their hands, and I think they said, hey guys, why don't we all start working together? And I think this was about 2 years ago. Because they were exactly where you're at. Before I give it up, if you've ever tried to give up a solve, it's the hardest thing in the world. And they said, before I give it up, how are you doing it? Are you willing to all come in and kind of share what you have? Because I can see enough on the forums or discussion. You know a little bit. I know a little bit. Maybe we can put our heads together. And I think that reignited the methodology. And there was a group of people talking about the methodology. Because if you put in a couple of the other words that weren't used, that weren't a part of Forrest rules, I think it took you to another place in Yellowstone, and it took you to the medicine wheel, which Mike's try the wheel. So you add all those together, it reinvigorated the group. And it seems that they believe Forrest was at least talking to them through the scrapbooks. So that kept them going down that path, I believe, because of that. They just knew there was something not adding up. Maybe it was the add up. I don't know.
Because that was an interesting one, wasn't it? The homophone. So I've been thinking a lot about this. So the obvious one is that done. Homophones is supposed to be 2 words that are pronounced the same but spelt differently. and kangaroo words words
Right.
where you've got showy words that are part of it. So you could say that part of it becomes a separate word, and then that's a homophone. But still, I guess you could say that, couldn't you?
But it
why?
doesn't hold to either set of rules. And that's the hard part. And I think that was the part that for like waters, even though you don't hear ATE should have been considered.
Yep.
And maybe this is another confirmation bias. Maybe this is where Forrest says, I'm only right 85% of the time. And he's kind of saying, guys, these are my rules. And one of the people that we know involved, they believe to the day that Tsuki scrapbook was written for them, because they wrote Forrest the previous day and said, why aren't my coordinates working? And the next day he said, Tsuki ate the mushrooms, didn't know the rules. I do have to say, I have seen a few people, if that's just a coincidence, he was just simply messing with people, because that's too much of a coincidence. And it didn't involve the eights. The eights, in my opinion, should have been in there according to the rules. They had that information down to the exact day. That goes, Forrest was either really messing or this was the right technique. And some of the people just had the little bits off, which could be miles. I mean, if you're 1 minute off, I don't know how many miles. I don't know enough about it, but yeah. Okay, keep going.
It's quite far. Well, no, I was thinking about the 8-bit, and when he says the rules, it does suggest, doesn't it, that there are some rules that if you knew them and you only need the poem, then you would be able to discount 8, and maybe that would give some confirmation. I guess my next question would be, is anything from the source suggesting that they knew the finder had found the rules in that sense?
I almost think they were talking about it over the years. It sounds like. I think it sounds like it's, do you use the 8? Do you not add up? When you have 2 on one line, do you subtract it? No subterfuge. Do you subtract it? Do you add it? Do you multiply it? Do you use each one? They thought eventually, there was a lot of discussion, it sounds like. I don't think like search partner discussions. I don't know enough. So you guys are getting part of my opinion. So I think the source has some hard facts and some of his opinions. Then you have some of Mike's opinions and some of Mike's hard facts. And you add it to when it gets to me, because Mike's the one corresponding. It gets to me. I now have some of my opinion, and some of my opinions might be, it's like, I want to say everyone just state the facts, but even I'm doing it. And Mike and I have debated a few things like, this doesn't make sense. And he's like, no, that does. And so now we have that game telephone 3 different times. And that doesn't even include Cynthia and I and Justin's trip and kind of what we did on that piece. So to go back, I think they knew they were onto something for whatever reason. And that's why they stayed together. And they didn't discount the process, but like paddle up. Somehow paddle up became important somewhere in the last 2. Like you have to add up. Oh, and then that makes 9 coordinates. Well, still, they went out to that spot and they knew something was just a little off. Why? Why did one have seconds and the other did? Oh, let's do it as a point 2, is what I think. I didn't confirm that though. And I've not been able to confirm that, but go ahead.
So is the source part of that group, or was part of that group?
I don't know if there's a formal group, formal arrangement, formal me. I don't know enough to answer it. I know enough to know there was seems like there was some correspondence, but I don't know enough of the rest. Did they have a formal agreement? That sort of thing. I do believe he is not getting anything, even if he was in, I don't know. I felt like, let's say there was a group of 5 people working with me.
There might be like 3 left or something, and he's not
right.
part of.
I do think there's a group of them that actually, I believe
carried on.
Not a finder.
Yeah.
But let's say it was me, you, Mike, Cynthia, and Justin, and me and you at the end of the day went and found it. I'd be kicking something to everybody in whatever group I bantered about with. It doesn't sound like that. And I think that's why some are like, I believe I know more than one of the people that know something, that are maybe in, I don't want to call it a group because that means they've had an agreement. And I don't.
It's like a meeting of minds around a GPS solve approach.
I think the GPS approach was discussed by a group of people and a couple in that group. One of them is our source, but there's more than one that has some information that's really interesting to how all this came together. And I'm patching that together through different stories. And then you also have the shenanigans. Some were like, I'm in the group. And I'm like, okay, tell me this or that. And they can't say anything. It's
we need a new phrase now. We've got source finder and group member. There we go. I was a group member. There we go. Okay, so I think I said this yesterday. So originally you went and the source had given you 2.2 at the end, not 2.2.
Right.
And I think you answered it yesterday, but just for everyone who's on today and wasn't yesterday, do you think that the source knew the discussion with the finder to the point, but not past the point where it turned to 0.2?
Yes, I believe this is what this is what I know, and then this is what I believe. I know that when the finder went out, or I believe I know. I don't have it directly, so I can't say no for sure, but no through some direct evidence rather than just my guessing. I believe late last summer, the finder group went out for many days, whether it was 22 or 24, however many days, or 25, and they didn't crack it. And I think that's when there was a lot of correspondence and a lot of activity during Boots on the Ground, right? And I think it was by all the different groups were going out, or like subgroups and different people. And some had search partners within and some were without, all of that. Then they all kind of met up and said, we're all empty-handed. And they kind of shared what they had been doing. And then that was it. And especially with COVID, they knew everybody was going back out, but they didn't know there was some little adjustment that was made because they adjusted every year. So it's kind of like if you and I were in an agreement and Mike and Cynthia and Justin were in agreement, we're going to share some, we're not going to share every single thing. So I don't think they shared their exact, and then we were just able to figure it out through the pictures because he got pictures same day that it was announced. And then, so between what he had as I think at the time he thought that was the exact one because that's where they were last year, and the pictures, we were able just to do the 0.2 the next day and put it together, and it fit if you converted it to 0.2. So,
okay. So how often is the correspondence with the source? Is it constant now? Is it an ongoing conversation? Is it?
I don't know because I'm not the one. I mean, Mike is the one having some correspondence. I would say, I mean, I don't know, a few times a day to maybe, or just daily or every few days, somewhere in that category. I mean, I don't think there's nothing for weeks. I just think because there's been a lot to talk about, but I don't think it's a huge part of either part of their lives. When Mike said, here, let me show you the GPS originally that came in, and the answer was, thanks, bro. And then there was nothing for I'm like, Mike, you had this solution and your answer was thanks, bro. Like, really? That was that was it? Because and that's what he did to we got so many at the beginning. He would just go, cool, man. Thanks, bro. Sounds good. Did it. That was it. But then once we figured out there was actually something to it, there was a lot more discussion. I can tell you when we went Boots on the Ground, he was really interested. And there was correspondence. Like, I came back first day and I'm like, you contact him and you tell him it wasn't here. And I'm mad. And he's like, I'll ask him nicely. And I'm like, were we duped? And I still have a little part of that. But at the end of day one, when we didn't find it, the trees didn't even match. I was like, we were duped. And he came back and said, I am confident in the pictures. And that was the last known location. Maybe, and he threw out some ideas, maybe 0.2. That was a big discussion, 0.2 rather than seconds. And he gave us a couple of other ideas. And Randy Pischel, I got to give him credit, did a video with the 0.2. So we actually had three places we had mapped out to go. We knew the first one was wrong because the trees didn't match at all. Yeah. So
it does sound like he's missing some bits, doesn't it? And then he's trying to help you at the last bit of it. Yeah. So I think just some questions about the poem again, and we'll come back to that. So Forrest said, if you haven't got Where Warm Waters Halt, And I think he went as far as saying the location where World Mortar's halt, you've got nothing. You haven't got anything.
If you don't have the location of the GPS that begins with that stanza and that line, you have nothing.
That's how you interpret that.
That's how I could interpret it to fit myself. Total confirmation. But I heard that was one huge issue with these homophone people. They started at the beginning. You can't start at the beginning of first stanza and get the right GPS coordinates. You must start at begin at where one start. If you don't, but it actually fits both the exact and the general. You also have, if it is Isolake, let's say, you have to start at Isolake to get there, but there is no way to start your GPS location without the right location to start with, which is that first line.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest ones. That it's that belief again, isn't it? That the 9 separate clues, you have to treat them and you have to deal with the first one first in isolation, and that's not part of the GPS. That's one of the hardest ones, I think. What have I got here now? So, do you know if the do you know through the source or for any other means whether the finder talked about the GPS style solve on forums?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone will be on.
Now
forums.
I won't say whether it's still there, but
Okay.
I will say there was discussion on forums about this technique.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that have deleted a lot of things at this point. Darn it. I wish I would have known beforehand.
That's true. So we did discuss yesterday whether or not could this location be the starting point, because I think from the outside, to me, it's a shortcut to get a GPS location to the chest, and it's not a great solution then. But if it was the start, it could be the start of a great solution, and then I'm back in the game. Then I like it.
So are you saying like you take the GPS coordinates and that's your WWH?
Oh, or just the starting location, and you follow the poem clue 2 onwards from there, for example.
Yeah, the only thing, and I'll tell you, there's a few things I don't like about this solution, and one of them is I really wanted water at that final spot. It is a secluded place. It is a place where he could rest his bones. I wanted at least the view of a fishing spot. That's what I put in my mind it to be Finney. So unless waters is something else, it wouldn't be that. So I like that idea because that's how you could double encode it. That's your beginning spot, and then you go from there. But it doesn't seem to fit unless there's waters that I don't know about, because we already know DeLacy's right hand was brown. Hopefully it was also waters, but I have no idea. I haven't done the research I know a lot of people are doing research and sending it to me on DeLacy, etc., which is awesome. But I just don't know. But that would be super cool if that was the beginning of this, basically the second puzzle then.
Yeah, because he said, didn't he, that the solving the first clue was would insinuate as half the problem to solve, wasn't it? You're halfway there, and so it needs to be quite big. So that could fit. I guess my question was more around, from what you know from the source, does it strongly suggest that is the location, so this wouldn't fit, or does it leave enough room that the chest could be elsewhere?
No, I think again, this is part of the discussion debate. GPS is the only thing given. I think there's a debate, even if the 9 locations even met. Like, why even do I said to Canyon to DeLacy? If you have the GPS, you don't need anything else. So it's nice to, and that's why a lot of people are like, I don't like your 9 locations. That didn't come from the source, the finder, anybody. I don't even know if it's a part of it. I like the idea though, it's a part of it, and that's why I backed it in. Isolate as I've gone along, all of that. Yeah. But that wasn't, I think, important to the finder.
So, but just back to the source potentially leaving the conversation with the finder earlier and missing the latter stages. Do you think it's feasible that maybe that happened and they lost the narrative where the finder did find out this was only partway through and there was more to go, and that's where they went super quiet about it?
Well, except for we have confirmation that log and that location was exactly where it was found. We have additional.
Right. Okay. Okay.
We have additional pictures that leave very, very, very little doubt. Very, very little doubt that it was, the position is it was found right there at the point 2, right there.
So here's the big question. Have you seen pictures with the chest in that location?
No.
Okay. There was a good question yesterday. Do you know how the chest is concealed? Was concealed?
Yes.
And I think
that's why I hesitate a little, because there's a nuance between what you just asked and that question that may overlap a little, and that's where I'm struggling.
Okay.
But,
so do you think maybe you've seen a picture where it's concealed?
100%.
But it's still there under something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And you said that it was surprising what it was concealed under.
So when we were out wandering, or when I go boots on the ground, and I'm sure you've experienced this, I go to a location and I say to myself, there's some like key quotes that rattle around in my brain from Forrest. There's something that should stand out here. There's something that should stand out here. And I've always thought that's how it's concealed. I don't know if there was a big arrow like on Wile E. Coyote. Like, I didn't know what, but I thought there should be something that significantly stands out more than a tree bark off of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that was the case.
So when he said he left it on the ground and it's not covered by a man-made object, is that still in keeping with what you
100%?
think?
Yeah.
And when you say you're surprised, so we've often thought, is it covered by a log or is it covered by leaves? Does that leave you surprised, or is it something else?
Maybe a little bit of both. Okay. He holds true to what he said, but he was clever. He was clever in how he did it. I would not have expected how it was concealed.
Okay. So the definition of nook, I always thought a nook could be like a little sort of crack type area into a big rock area, and it'd be very tight. And I think another definition is just an opening. What was the use of the word nook here? What was the nook?
So when we had I think the word nook actually came from the Finder's article. That is the reason, in a joking way, so don't everybody get all upset, we called this Operation Nook. Every morning we were like, Operation Nook, go! Like, that was that's what we called it. # Operation Nook. And for us, it was that one log that in the middle, it looked kind of broken and had 2 little spots on each side, and it looked like it was kind of filled in the middle, with the 2 little spikes on the of branches on the one side. That's what we called. That was affectionately known to us. We had that picture, which we called the nook picture. We had the lodgepole pine picture, which we called the trees picture, and then we had the down trees picture, which was the pine that had fallen down, which we knew we kind of focused on, but it didn't look anything like it. Once a tree falls, I am surprised in 4 months, it can go from 4 or 5 feet tall to, it's just nothing. It deteriorates. And I'm just not an outdoorsy type to understand that. So we looked for that. We started looking for the nook, and we started looking for the downed pine for so long, hours, when we knew we were in the right spot, but we just weren't getting it. And then we just went lodgepole pine to try to match. And then we were standing in front of the lodgepole pines and we went, oh, that's it. There were so many down trees, you would have walked right past it otherwise.
And when he gave the instruction to kids to turn over a log, does that play a part?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Another big question. We talked yesterday about the story of the location. Maybe DeLacy, maybe he found some gold there. Maybe he chose to conceal it in a similar way, and that's why he was so confident it wouldn't be found. Do you know more about the story, about the location, than you can say?
No, none. And that's what I think is the most frustrating, is in chat about 2 weeks. So I know, because I talked to Forrest, but Forrest has said the story, there is a story I believe the story is in his autobiography that's in the chest. I did not know until recently. Nelica, if you guys don't know Nelica is a personal friend of Forrest. She has collections. She's the one that bought all the original illustrations. She's selling some of them up on eBay right now, etc. She said, I talked to Forrest, and even though the family owns the copyright, they have been asked not to share that. So the only person that has that story, and Forrest confirmed this many times, but in our interview as well, is the finder. So I believe the finder is the only one. The family may know it. They're not going to say it. They want out. I mean, they're shutting down websites. They want the hell out of Dodge on this. The finder is the only one that knows it. And I think that's what would even make it more. The finder still has a story here. Some people were like, oh, you stole this from the finder. No, the solve, I think, was everyone's because we all worked on it. That story is in the autobiography. I wouldn't give up the finder's name and I wouldn't give up the story. Those are the two things that are the finders. And Forrest was very clear. That's up to them.
I presume the family are comfortable that the finder article is from the finder.
Say that again.
I presume the family are comfortable that that was the finder in the Medium article to publicize it on the site. Yeah.
Yeah, they pulled down the site though. They pulled down.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
But at the time, absolutely. What to me, 100%, the family is confirmed. The finder is the one that wrote the article. No, they have not in any way said that's the GPS, the GPS solve. They have not made that connection, nor do I think they would. They want their family safe. Some people are making their family unsafe. So they are now separating, just like Forrest had to. It's funny because someone said, this is why when you say to your kids, we can't have nice things, it's because of you buggers. Well, I don't even know what the harsher term is from over the pond.
People need to sort themselves out, seriously. Have a reality check. There's some people that are just plain immature and selfish, and they need to sort themselves out. So back to the location. So it looked pretty dense. So it looked like perhaps you couldn't see mountains, couldn't see animals, sort of things he said you could see. What do you think?
The animals, absolutely, you could see. I would say I have some ridiculous footage where I went over to the little chipmunk and I'm like, Chipmunk, has Forrest been here? And I talked to the chipmunk for a while. We didn't see, I'm sure there was a part of a deer or an elk. We know bears were in the area because we saw bear poop. We saw lots of different types of poop, and I have never spent so much time identifying what animal it comes from. There was all different kinds there. You from the dense bush or dense forest, you could not see the mountains. If you went 20, maybe 40 feet over to the open pasture meadow, and I took a 360 of it, you can definitely see mountains. So 40 feet away, you could see mountains. And I've heard if you go another about half mile, that is the greatest overlook there is because it overlooks Shoshone Lake. And that is like the dream shot. And that's one thing I don't like is if it was the dream shot, that's where the treasure chest should be. But again, I don't get, the nice part is we're not trying to make this fit perfectly. We're just saying this is what it is. It didn't fit perfectly in every way with what I had envisioned. But some people asked me about sagebush. I hate to say a bush was a bush. I asked, Justin was kind of the mountain man with us. I said, is there sagebush in this area? He said, yes. I said, is there pinyon in this area? And he said, no. And there was two others. It was yes to everything except the pinyon in that particular area.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that most places around there do have sagebrush. So, if Forrest's answering a question like that, he can make the assumption, even if it isn't just in that nook of an area, then you get away with that one.
Justin's in the room and he said, yes, you can.
There you go.
I don't know what the yes you can is, but I'm glad to see
mountains,
Justin.
I suspect.
Oh, yes, you can. Okay.
There we go. He says he has a picture of a mountain. There you go. It's concrete.
From the exact spot. Okay.
So would you say that, because I think we all imagined it'd be a beautiful area, somewhere you want to die. It just looked like any other part of the forest. Would you say that it's the story that makes it so important, not that it was an area of outstanding beauty? You're in the middle of the forest, weren't you?
Well, So the good question to that, I asked that exact question to Cynthia. I have been to a lot of parks. I've been to Yellowstone. I've been, what's the one in California? Yeah. Anyway, I've been to maybe 10 parks, major parks where it's beautiful. This seemed as beautiful as others. This seemed, there was a little bit of uniqueness, but not so much that I would say, this is spectacularly different. And I said to Cynthia, tell me, is this different? And we were walking on that trail and she said, one, the trail was so easy. So easy. Two, it was so well manicured. There wasn't a lot, it was just, there wasn't places where you could twist an ankle. There wasn't, it was just, and it was beautiful because of all the different pieces to it. So that was unique. There's a lot of trails that might have some trees, but it doesn't have, whatever, else, whatever other pieces. Hold on, I'm having just a little situation. So but would I say, I went to, okay, so there were some places in Yellowstone that I thought were overwhelmingly beautiful, but Forrest probably didn't. The only thing I can think of, like, I liked Ojo Caliente more because that's my love solve, because it had Mystic Falls way out there, and it had a fishing spot, and it had a place you could bathe, for river bathing is best, and you could sit in the trees if you wanted, just there. Did it have all of that? It didn't. But maybe Forrest was such a mountain man as well that he was like, I don't need all of it in one spot. And I think maybe the story was more important.
Yeah.
But Cynthia was like, no, I've been on thousands of trails. You don't know how unique this is. You have a meadow right here. You can come and get some shade here. It would have been beautiful here. So she was a little bit more sold on it being the perfect spot just as the spot. I think more the story, but probably both. I think there's a story. I want the story. Find her. I want the story.
Hidden gold. It's got to be hidden gold. Anyway.
Hidden gold.
So the 200-foot search, we talked about that yesterday. And he said that the 200-foot searcher, they knew me better than I thought. And I had a look at some distances from that location. And I think, let me have a quick look. I think you have to be in the wood, maybe just at the edge of it to be within 200 feet. But there's nothing unique around there as to why they would just randomly be looking and be 200 feet away.
Well, I have an answer to that, but let me go back. Justin said what was unique is that you could walk there without climbing over a lot of logs. I do have to say, Forrest could have gotten to that spot anywhere up to 80 years old. He could have done it at 80. I would have liked it 500 feet closer, but I did it, and I'm back kind of getting out of shape because of COVID. I had no issue at all getting there. And it was a mile out. And so it just wasn't, so that definitely could be it. 200 footer, I'm just going to go by, they knew me so well. So I'll say there were some people that were close to that. Rodney Greenway came at the first day that said, oh my gosh, I had a saw right there. I don't know if it was the exact GPS. I don't think it was, but that general area. Justin had been out there. A couple other people privately messaged me and said, I'd let Forrest know. Here was my email. I was out, generally speaking, in that area. The dry creek where it hits one of the other creeks. See, I'm such not great when it comes to DeLacy Creek, yeah. Right there. That's within, I think, a few hundred feet of the spot. I don't know how many. Justin's in the room. He'll know it right off. If somebody knew DeLacy and Dry Creek right there at that perpendicular, Dry Creek was no paddle up your creek, there could have been a lot of people there. Because I've now looked it up and just did Forrest Fenn, Shoshone, DeLacy. There was a lot of people in that area, a lot. And they were wandering in this because it was so easy.
Yeah. I think the trail, the closest point of the trail is about 600 feet or just short of 600 feet. So that's close enough to 500. Lots of searchers were within 500 feet.
No, I think it was 1,400 feet off the path.
I think there's one point just where, if I've got the right coordinates, but it's it was interesting about the 200-foot searcher. Just what would it be? And I was thinking, if it is a story about DeLacy, as he talked about
Yeah.
DeLacy, and then is there something there, and he's gone looking for where Forrest found the gold, or there could be something, couldn't there?
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the source then and the finder. So, is there any indication? I mean, does it seem that if they broke away from the story with the finder at a point, they've clearly understood that there's an article coming out, so they're clearly getting some news from someone. Does that seem to be indirect or direct from the finder to the source?
I believe it's indirect.
Okay.
I believe.
I mean, that makes sense, wouldn't it, if they parted ways for some reason at some point?
Or they just didn't have as much direct interaction. And at this point, if you were the finder, I would be locking down. I mean, I would be down to only talking with one or two people. But think about, everybody talks to one or two others, stuff's getting out. They're locking it down more and more and more. Yeah. Someone asked in the chat, and I'm just occasionally looking at it, what was the key word? From my opinion, the key word was paddle, because that's where the ad is. And that took, from what I understand, a long time to really understand, what do you do with these extra numbers? Do you add them? Do you subtract? Do you divide, multiply, carry the two, whatever? Yeah.
So 3D Bronze was just talking about the distance that Forrest went. I think it's something like 0.98 miles. So it's in keeping with the comments that he's made. Yeah, it is in keeping.
Yes. And he always said long distances. Because somebody said, you always said, he said a half a mile. He said a half a mile. No, he didn't. That day, when I emailed him, I said, I made it a mile today. Should I even go? He knew I was going to be going to Ojo. He probably thought at the time, I always took it, that means a half mile because it's a half mile out and half mile back. He never said that. He never even shared that I made it a mile. He just said a polite email from Christy says, if you're walking long distances, you're walking too far. 1 mile, he's still within the 1 mile, but I would have had to make it back. So the only thing is, he doesn't directly contradict, but I would have liked it a half mile, quite honestly, because that fits with what I thought, but that could mean I'm wrong.
It's quite flat though, isn't it?
Oh, it was so easy. Seriously, a kid could do well. And I didn't know this. There's like an all trails app that you put they rank all the trails like 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. This was a 1. You can't get easier than this. This was like the easiest, and even off trail, it was easy. It was just walking. There was nothing to go over. Even there's a big log or a big tree that had fallen, and there was a path around it. Literally, I did not need to pick up my feet more than 2 inches.
For this to be such a neat and tidy forest, does that suggest it's a maintained forest area? Does Justin know, for example, if it's a maintained forest area?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? And the impact of movement if they did clear anything away. Okay, we did talk about it yesterday, but sort of on reflection, trying to sort of go back a little bit into what could make a good solve if it was 9. Then ISA is quite a good one, isn't it? So begin it where warm waters halt, and I believe that ISA can be warm at certain parts of the year. It's on the continental divide, whether that does anything. And begin it, you could say the poem begins at, and then you got butterfly flutter by, and it felt like that needed to come into place somewhere, and that would work there. So that's quite nice, that in itself. ISA Lake.
Well, and I guess it's one of the unique things. It says it's the most important little lake in the whole United States. If you look at its kiosks, and I took some pictures of the kiosks, I can share them later. And the reason for it is it's the only lake that deposits into both oceans. And one ocean is warmer than the other. And that's why I don't know if I like that as much as why warm water halt, but some people sent it to me. They liked it for that. Okay.
If it's warm and it's sat there, then that's as good as any. You dip your toe in it at the right point of the year and it's warm. Could have that. And then it looks like the road does go down. It looks like it has got banks, so that could be considered a canyon.
Yeah.
And it does look like it's about, was it 1.08 miles? I think I measured it as, to the point where you park up. seems pretty reasonable as well. I guess after that's where it gets difficult, and the idea that if it was a riddle, is the coordinates the riddle, or is there another part of this that's the riddle?
Yeah.
I mean, Meek, I've used Meek before for Meek as a lamb, and then Shoshone Indians were sheep eaters, weren't they, I think, and stuff, and that'd apply with the lake there. You certainly got heavy loads further down, but you are going past it. Has the source has never said anything about 9 clues. It's just been
No, he said some stuff about 9 clues that I think is crazy. I don't agree.
Right, okay.
I agree with some of what he says. I don't agree with some of the other. But he was very clear. None of this came from the finder. We just were bantering back and forth about what could Homa Brown be. Randy came up with the what was it? The bird, the one bird that is described as brown, but it's kind of a gray looking bird. He's like, that could be it. All of that could be, but I don't think any of it matters if you have an exact GPS location. But I wonder if it's important to the story. That's the piece. Like, is ISIS somehow involved, or maybe, whatever?
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things is when you find all your solutions and you hear other people's, and it feels like the book was a puzzle book, and you had to use the book because he told us. It's going to be hard to solve it if you've just got the poem, and it felt like there was a style to it. You'd look at the map and you'd see words and this that, and the other, and it all felt very different and good. And I guess this feels a bit similar to other treasure hunts, I guess, in that sense. It was direct, it was simple, we just missed it. I guess it's in keeping with things like he was saying, it's right in front of us, wasn't he? We're looking at all these other things, but it's right in front of you. It does fit with that. It could be that it just was this underwhelming. That's just what it was.
Well, so we know, I don't know if we know from the Finder article, I might totally be speaking out of turn. The Finder was asked to wait until Forrest passed. Is part of the reason because of this anticlimactic ending that we now, like, when the Finder puts it out, let's say, just for the sake of exercise here, this is the solve. This is the final piece. The ties to the book were, well, it said Yellowstone, and there was a paddle on one of the pages with Dad paddling him. And I think a lot of people, where's that button that Mike goes, wonk, wonk, wonk? Like, part of me knows some people would be disappointed. They're disappointed now. That's why they don't believe in it. It's not as big as what they thought, grandiose with hints and clues. They've been looking at illustrations for years, and Forrest put an X on one of the other. I think maybe that is part. I mean, why would Forrest tell the Finder, wait to put out anything until I pass? Doesn't that give his family more crap? And I know he cares about his family. Yeah. Why would he do that other than, oh my gosh, this got away from us and away from him, and he didn't realize every quote, every this, every that, and he knew his hand was going to get caught in that cookie jar. You have some friends of his that are now sharing emails everywhere because he's getting caught in fibs, lies, I don't know, 85-15. He so knew he was going to get caught. He told several people, supposedly, they were 200 footers. They weren't near this area. They're not happy right now.
I think it's a keeper. We've got to rewind it back, haven't we? This was a small scale hunt, and then it got big. So all of his original thinking was not in the context of where we are now or where we were 2 years ago. So we do have to be mindful of that. This was small scale. And then he got very confident that people just aren't getting it. They're not going to get it. Great. They're not going to get it, and they're not going to get it for ages. So I can just elaborate a little bit and take poetic license and exaggerate, and I can so you can go. Then he's like, oh crikey, so someone's got it. So yeah, you can understand that then, can't you? What I think is it is disappointing for people, and I'd suggest to people to just accept it's disappointing and then start thinking, what if? So what if this is the solution? It might be a nice exercise to look through the book and look at all those hints that you've highlighted and underlined, and see if any of them now apply to giving you the rules for the poem.
And we have a couple of searchers that have done just that over the last week or two. Shannon Nuts from Odious Soul, and Copper Dan from Being Copper Dan. Oh, okay. There's a lot going on. Hi, everybody who's watching, and you know what that means. We have lots of, so let me tangent off of that for a second. Hey, Britt Chaser, if you had any direct question that we would be able to give, where you wouldn't want it to go through the game telephone, what would you ask from the source or the finder that isn't out now? Rattle off, my friend, and this is a unique opportunity.
Can we have a picture of the location with the chest in? That's one. Can you explain the discrepancy of 22.2? Was it just GPS, or do the 9 solves come in some way?
Now, let me ask you a question. What if the solve was actually more general and Forrest wanted to point to a more general area, being Yellowstone or that specific region that had Ojo, it had Old Faithful, it had some beautiful areas in it that he's talked about, so important to him, river bathing is best, etc. And then he just made the GPS work somewhere in the Yellowstone borders. But it really wasn't that exact spot. See, I tend to think it needs to be the exact spot. Mm-hmm. But there's some argument of this just means it's Yellowstone, and damn, that makes sense. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that'd allow you to go back to the 9 clues and bring it back in for people to accept. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Before I went awry there, what did you ask? I forgot.
What did I ask? Let me think now. So my first things first. My first reaction was, people I trust, you and Cynthia. I know your thought process. I trust you implicitly. You've been very clear with everyone. You know things you can't say, and with the information that's out and the stuff you can't say, you're convinced. And I think I said it at the start last night on Greg's. That to me means, right, I trust you. You've got it. That's it then. Which doesn't help with it not being hard and accepting that it's a boring solution and it's really hard compared to everything else. So it's very hard, isn't it, from the inside to know how others can feel on this. But can you appreciate, I guess, can you get a sense of how the gap that people have got?
Yes.
They'd go, I don't think this is right. And I think we're seeing it in the chat a bit, people saying, no, this isn't the solution. This just isn't the location. Can you see how it's so dependent on what you know?
Yeah.
To give you that confidence.
There's two things that are happening. One that I am aware of is exactly what you just said. Those few things, and there's a couple of other things that just sealed it for me that isn't all out. And because it's not all out, I know others can't be in the same vantage point as us. I do think, and that's one of the reasons when I sat and said, what can I at least share a little bit with? Who would I share a little bit with that understands this hunt enough and is so passionate about the Nook, finding the Nook? And that's why Cynthia. And I knew she had some, at least with some strong reputation. And then when she had the idea with Justin, like 6 hours into the drive, and I was like, yes. And so I think he brings credibility at a whole different level because he's not a tuber. He's not a personal friend of Forrest that's been, all of that and drama. He's never been in the drama. He's never been, and he has Tucker and he's been on a marathon before. So some people know him. He's credible. So it kind of became the perfect dream team for us to make it as credible to the community without sharing everything. The piece that I didn't understand, and I still don't fully agree with it, but I actually understand it because so many people are saying it. As you, Christy, and you, Mike, you don't get to have an opinion at the same level as a generic searcher because of who you are. Because of who you are and the role you play, whether it's $2 super chat or just you're on YouTube, you hold a different role. So when you put out your opinion passionately, especially at the timing that came out, you have to know. We're not going to just say no. Like we heard Jono solve and it had storybook stories, and we're going to go, that's nice, but no. When you do it, just like Toby, just like a few of the other bigger tubers, we're going to not say it in such a nice way. We're going to zing you because you've zinged people. You've done this and that and the other. And we've said 100 times, one of the biggest questions is, and somebody asked me, and I said, we've answered it 20 times. I'll answer it again. What happens if you find out from the finder with undeniable evidence this is wrong? What would you do? I would say I'm wrong. I was wrong with Ojo Caliente. I was wrong with Nez Perce. I was wrong with Lake Heron. If this is the exact spot and there's no warm water with tipping your toe in it, I thought for sure he was given some sort of a hint because he gave it to both Scott Conway and to me. I was wrong. And the cool part about it is you have to be wrong to get to the right. Just like one of the treasure hunts we went out on, Mike went 5 days, didn't find it. Sammy and I and David flew in. When we flew in, we found it the first day. You have to do some wrongs to get the right. We got out there. We reported as honestly what we saw. We believed in it. Some people are like, did you hear you're never allowed to have an opinion again about this because once you're wrong, you can never go back. That's the cool part. I just don't agree with that. I might in 6 months, if the finder comes out, it's written a book for somehow it's confirmed that it is the look. And let's say it ends up being in New Mexico. Some people are like, no, it's wrong because it's not in New Mexico. I'll be the first to say, gosh, I didn't see that coming. It wasn't what we found in Wyoming. I was wrong. I was wrong. And everybody can like have a drink when I say so.
What percentage chance would you say though, knowing what you know, there's a wiggle room that it could be wrong though? Cynthia's absolutely convinced, isn't she? So
100%. And
yeah.
I don't know 100. So here's the thing for me, actually, and Cynthia, because we did talk day before last. I am 99%. This was the area within a few hundred feet.
Okay.
This whole fake blaze 2 versus 0.2 confusion. I don't know if it's exact. It feels like it is. So I'm like 99 that this is the right general area. If it ends up being, let's say, a couple hundred feet off, I'm 99.999%. It's within a couple hundred feet, but I actually think it is that.
So,
but there was so much confusion around that. I don't know.
Could those blazes be the fake blaze in your mind though? Or is that a push?
There's confusion around the fake blaze.
Okay. That'd be one to go back to the
that,
source with, I think. If the source was able to say something about that.
Yeah, and I asked Mike for some clarification, and I'll tell you, I think it was yesterday, he told me what it was, and I'm like, that causes more, I'm not even saying that, because that's more confusing. And he's like, oh yeah, because I was like, but this, and then this, and then that, and he's like, I see your point. That would cause more confusion. I said, until now, more than ever, until it's totally solid in my mind to be able to put out, I'm not putting it. The fake blaze is confusing to me, and some additional information about the fake blaze. There's just something that doesn't fit right.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's lying. I think it's just their perspectives, and it's gotten confused and muddled along the way.
Yeah.
Oh, and Cynthia and I walked 1,000 feet this way, 1,000 feet. I mean, we were looking all over for a fake blaze.
Well, I mean, I worked with Cynthia day in, day out for over a year on the Sunlight Creek solve, and the amount of hits there, and it was just amazing. But for her to then see this and know what you know and say this was it, that for me was just right. Okay. And this is someone who's so thorough with everything, and she just was accepting of that. She was still wanting to keep looking and going out there, and that's what does it, and it makes me really sort of think, right, okay. And she can't say anything.
I have to tell you, there was an additional trip out there that we did not publicize. And it was, she woke up and she was like, there's a few things I need to confirm there. And she started packing up. And I said, whoa. Justin's not here. I wasn't planning on going. I thought we were done. We were doing some, and she was like, I don't know if you got that with her. She was packing up. She was going. And she went to the bathroom, and I got in her truck and I sat down. There is some other stuff that happened during this trip. And right then Justin messaged me and said, what you guys doing today? And I said, I am literally in her truck. because she's going to go, and she was willing to go alone. And I did not want, it was already out. I was worried about crazy searchers. I was worried about bears. I was worried about everything. Thank God for Justin, because Justin's like, I think he messaged Cynthia and said, let's do breakfast. Let's get a plan. I'll go out with you. We'll figure this out. There was a few more questions, and her last trip out, I did not go. I stayed in the campground area. Their last day out. She got everything answered. She had so many questions, but she needed a day to process to figure out what they were. And I think that's why she's so sure. There was just some things maybe Forrest said to her, maybe just is in her mind, maybe whatever. Yeah.
There's a few comments in the chat I just wanted to address. There's a lot around people sort of saying, why keep secrets? It's all over now. This is the bit that annoys me the most. Now, I know K-Pro really well, and I know Cynthia really well, and I don't know the information they know. And I know it's frustrating, but they've promised someone and they keep their word and of their word. So why would they say it? So like me, you are just going to have to get over that. Seriously. So
has the person said to it, has a source said to us, this is why I want particular information quiet? Yes. Part of it is to protect the finder. Part of it is to protect himself. Part of it is there's some moving parts that are unknown at this point. Part of it is there's some shenanigans going on. Part of it, there's some safety issues. Here is the thing for me that I was grateful for the experience we had, the information. We weren't going to share any of it. And we asked the source, we're kind of changing the games, because if we would have gone on with no pictures, it didn't even make sense. At the beginning, it was don't share any of the pictures, and there was a variety of reasons why. He was gracious and allowed it because he knew that would help some get closure and some have. But here was the thing for me. If he said, don't share X, guess what? I didn't say, can you tell me exactly what? I was just grateful for what he has done for me getting closure. I'm not going to invest. And some people are like, just go back and say that the finder needs to put this out now. It's like, oh, I forgot. Yes, I should just say finder, source, go tell finder now that such and such said in a forum that you must share. I mean, there's so many moving parts to this. And don't forget lawsuits. People are threatening the family. People are threatening not only on YouTube. There's a lot going on in the background that we don't know. I know some of it. I don't know all of it. It's dangerous. But I do think this has helped a lot of people and then hasn't helped others. If you're crazy and you think it's still in New Mexico, I have gotten more. It's not in New Mexico. You didn't find it in New Mexico. So listen to my solve, which to me, it's just not valid. That's just me though.
Yeah. I mean, my people have different emotional reactions, don't they? And people have a long period where they're still emotional about it, and some people get over it. And my initial reaction was almost the sense that you and Cynthia were done. I thought, oh, that's because I'm not done. And I thought, oh, well, I don't want it to be over yet. I want us to keep talking. It feels like it's going away. But I quickly got over that. So I can understand why people have an emotional reaction to it.
Yeah.
You need to get control of that and not, go over the top with it and get angry with it. And I think it's the right thing to do. If someone says to you, you can't say this, you can say this, you can't say that. You have to respect that. And people just have to understand that. I think that's really important. Are there any other questions from the chat room?
I will answer one that I don't mean to call anybody in particular, but the reason I say crazy is because if you are trying to physically harm someone or harm them personally or their family, I am going to label you as crazy. And it's not any particular person. The people that behave in a way that is harming someone's, and we're not even talking about Forrest. The only person that I said to Forrest several times, you're bringing this on yourself. If you do some things, interact, etc., the drama, that kind of stuff, it's kind of on you, Forrest. I don't believe Peggy deserved it. I believe Peggy was getting a lot of it. I believe Zoe is getting a lot of it. I believe Shiloh is getting a lot of it. And I think those people, it's inappropriate. And I'm going to just use a word that might not be fair. I think it's crazy to do that. If you put so much of your life into this, I care a lot about it. I'm excited about it. And I was fixated on figuring it out. I never would harm a human being to find it. I would never kidnap a human being. I would never threaten a human being. In my opinion, and I do not have a psychology degree. This isn't clinical. I believe you're crazy. And I believe it's unsafe and it's not okay. That's my boundary. Some people say, hey, he brought it on to his whole family. It's kind of like the mob. When they go after somebody, they go after their whole family. So it's okay. I understand that point. I don't agree with it. There's a family grieving, and I know that I'm biased right now. My father's in the hospital unconscious right now. I don't believe my father should be a part of this. For some of you, I'm not even going to go there. There's lines that get crossed, and I think if you cross them, you're crazy. I'm not talking about somebody who believes it's in their Colorado solve or whatever. I don't agree with that, but I don't think that's crazy. There are some people that are just outright, they gave up so much, and they maybe weren't already, I think our population of chasers are the same population as the United States. You have some really wealthy, you have some really poor, you have some really adjusted, you have some really clinically insane. You have some, and some divorces, some families, some older, some younger. We have that general population. So we're going to have a few that have issues to the point that it becomes unsafe. And I think that's not what we should embrace as a community. I think we should embrace everyone. And I've had 2 searchers reach out to me and said, I don't know how you knew, but you saved my life. You spent some time with me on Facebook Messenger when you didn't have to, and I was hitting a really bad place in my life and thinking about taking my own life. That was the biggest compliment ever. There's nothing wrong with them. They were going through a hard time. That is different than the people in my mind that right now or recently or in the last year have gone to a physical threat. I just don't feel it's okay. Some people do, and we have different moral compasses. That's all.
And you're always going to get crazy people who are scary, aren't you? But I guess there's some people who lose it, but when they're away from this eventually and they reflect on it, I think they'll be ashamed at their behavior. And they should probably take time now to try and get that realization before it's too late. I really do think some people should take a step back.
And I think right now too, and I'll talk to this a little bit, I was banned from Forrest's house. This is the only thing I'm going to say. I got to see Forrest just before he passed, within a month of him passing. I think if I was banned, that wouldn't be the case. I am not going to argue with searchers of who is the closest friend drama. And now let's share all the personal emails we have to try to say who is the closest friend to him. I think he had a lot of friends. I think he interchanged with people that I didn't like. I think he tried to appease everybody. I think there was times he was mad at me. I even questioned myself. Was I really a friend to him? Because we did have some falling outs. We did have some sweet moments. When some people reached out to me to tell me some details that I didn't know they knew, I went, wow, I know that's someone close to Forrest, and it helped me. But it doesn't matter to this chase that people are now saying, oh, a year ago, you weren't allowed at Forrest's house. Okay, if that helps them get through the day that you were better friends, you were better friends. I'm telling you, you were better friends. It helps you get through it. I don't even care about arguing about that. It's so nonsense. I would rather talk about Titlegate, the title of our YouTubes, rather than who is better friends with Forrest. And he really didn't like K-Pro. And I'm going to spend years and months discussing that. It's so not useful. I would rather you bash GPS solve than who was better friends. But if it helps you, it helped me in knowing he was a really good person to me, even though there was times that he just asked me to stop some of I do have a hard time walking away from a couple people that just seem to pick. And he would tell me, you have such a good life situation. They don't. Can you just leave them alone when they attack you? And I tried, and I was not as good as I should have been. Because I knew it made stress for him. He had friends with all different types of people, even when they burned him. And I think we're going to see some pretty harsh things come out with emails being shared and things being shared. And he's gone. Like, what is it? I don't understand the hatred at this point of him, especially from some of his friends. But he told me, I never knew really who my friends were until after the treasure chest was found. Some people really that he thought was friends really turned on him, which is sad.
It's always going to happen, isn't it? It's
Yep.
a time. It's a time for everyone to reflect. I think people are getting carried away, winding each other up, and they just need to reflect. Is that the person they want to be? If it is, great, go for it, whatever. But seriously, if you're going to regret this, and I think most of you are, just stop now. Too
Yeah.
much of it. It's terrible.
Well, some people are saying it's important to the answers. Okay, I saw Forrest 2 weeks before he died. If I was banned from his house, would that be the case? I'm leaving it at that. I shared. He met the kids. He gave them presents, etc. Maybe then I'm not going to call people liars or whatever. I'm just going to say it doesn't match with the facts. And you guys got to see the presents he gave my kids. I shared some of the moments, especially the day that he died. I probably shouldn't have gone on live because I shared some things about all the things that happened. And you can take it or leave it. I'm not sharing my private emails between Forrest and I to make sure, and I'm not sharing pictures that I may or may not have of the times I've had when he met my kids. And if that's not enough for you, I'm okay with that. I'm okay because it doesn't matter to me. And I've put enough out there. That's all I'm willing to put out there. So
it's no one's business. Let's be honest.
ooh,
No one's business.
okay. Well, this guy just went after Forrest. That's the problem. Okay. Yeah. And if you hate Forrest and you think all these things should happen, boom, you don't belong here. Okay. You're gone now.
We shouldn't be watching. Go find another hobby. Do something different.
Right.
Make yourself happy. There you go.
If you hate Forrest and if you believe he deserves harm or his family deserves harm at this point, I'm not saying you're wrong. I think you're wrong. I'm just saying you're not on the right channel. That's all I'm saying. Okay. We have diverted. GPS solve.
GPS solve. Right. I've got another one. There was a BBC interview and Forrest said they solved the first and second clue. And then I think they solved the third and fourth and went right past the treasure, yeah? And he's often said that he knows the locations because people send him pictures. And I think you said yesterday, a GPS app, was it? That could show, and potentially that could be interpreted as the picture that shows where they were.
Well, so so there's several things that you just unpacked there all at once. So he has said the first and second clue, he confirmed in one of the interviews, he believes they've gotten to the fourth clue and he's never confirmed beyond that. Mm-hmm. Here's my opinion. The fourth clue gets you the latitude or I don't know. The first one. What's GPS? Mm-hmm. Latitude, then longitude? Whatever the first one.
It's a gap in my knowledge as well. I hope you were going to ask me.
Okay. Well, it gets you that first coordinate. And he could never confirm beyond that until somebody had the treasure chest in their hand. Right. So many people said, why didn't you say the fifth, the sixth, the seventh? He doesn't know that for sure until the treasure. So he confirmed basically they have the first coordinate, which gets you to where you get off the trail.
So
but
here's my counter to that then. So what if he was wrong then? Because he thought they got the third and fourth. If they'd only got the first two, what would that mean in that context?
I don't have it up, but it would be the first two, which is 4-4. He knew they were in the general area. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. He could be answering to Isa and the canyon. See, this is the interesting part. He could be answering either solve, the exact or the GPS.
Yeah. I guess that answers my next question as well. When just the simple thing, when the radio host in an interview read out the second stanza and he said that it sounded like 3 or 4 clues to him.
Yes, that's the first 4, which is the first set of coordinates.
Yeah.
And the picture. So, okay, it's funny because when Justin showed me this app, he said, here's where we're at. And it has a little button that says like, you are here. And then he goes, I'm going to turn it on for the day. So when he would go out, he would go and map around and he would have a little loop and he'd come back. And he would send that to Forrest and say, here's where I went. And I actually think he's one of the 200 or 500 footers because he would send Forrest that and say, oh, it was a wonderful, I don't know what he said exactly, but he had correspondence with Forrest. He was an adventurer like Forrest. I think probably the person closest I have seen in personality and situation to Forrest is Justin. I think they were a lot alike. And I think they had nice banter. We went out and it was like, it was spaghetti. And it was kind of cool to watch what we did. And I think he probably knew if more people did that. I'm assuming that Justin's not the only one. I didn't even know an app like that existed, but an app like that existed. And at least one searcher was sending him that, like, here was my adventure today through an app. How cool was that?
So my next one is from where you know how the chest was concealed, and from the picture you found where you thought the spot was where that was concealed. Is that the exact spot where you took a sample of the pine to let the dog sniff the bronze?
Ask that question again. Okay, wait. Do I have a mod in chat? Let me just make sure I do. Holly's there. Okay. Holly, you're on. I'm going back to Jonah. Go ahead.
So yeah, so you knew how the chest was concealed on the picture. I think you've said that you knew from the location you worked out where the chest was. Was that the exact place you scooped up pine needles, put them in a bag, and had the dog sniff for bronze? Oh, have I lost you? You've gone live. Is it just me? Can someone in the chat tell me if it's just me? Is K-Pro frozen, or is it me? It's just right. It's just K-Pro. Right, she'll be back in a minute. So I've taken over K-Pro's channel. There you go. Any questions? In fact, it would be a good time actually for people to ask questions in the channel. Go on. I'll see if I can answer them as well. Well, I see this as I get the monetization money for this segment, which is probably amounts to about £1.50 or something like that. But there you go. Go on, ask away questions in the chat room. Has anyone looked up the GPS location in the surrounding area? AJ, I have got one. It's down south in Banbury that I'm working on, but I'm mostly starting to look at the AGK hunt. So I do need to get back into that. Are you working on any, AJ? Adam, am I a believer in the solve? So I like I was saying before, I believe that what Christy and Cynthia have been asked by the source not to say has convinced them, and I trust their judgment through knowing them for a while and working on things with them for a while. So I trust their judgment on it, and I take note that there's still a little bit of wiggle room, 1% that maybe there's something going on there. Chase Indy, what is your interpretation of Homer Brown for your search area? So that's where the riddle started for me, and that was on the solution in Sunlight Creek working with Cynthia. So Strawberry Gulch. So put in below was interpreted as berry, to bury something put in below, and Homer Brown, it's capitalized, so I thought it was a person. So that was Brownie, from Three Little Pigs, who had a straw house. I'm just entertaining everyone. There you go. But you know what? With that one, actually, Candy, there was a scrapbook where he talked about huckleberries and strawberries and low-hanging fruit, and it came out just after we'd gone public with that. So I did genuinely think that he did see things, read emails, and then write scrapbooks based on it. And that wasn't necessarily a confirmer of your solve, but it was just having a bit of fun. You're back.
Sorry. It was actually, I'm in a hotel and I can only be on for a few hours and it knocks you off and makes you, like, it basically disconnects you from the internet and you have to put the password in the room and all of that. And so I had to do that.
Well,
I
there
was
you
like,
go.
wait. So it was not purposeful.
Where
Okay.
were we? Where were we? I'm sure there were some more questions about the that was it, the finder. So if imagine the solve that me and Cynthia worked on, you worked on it as well with Mike, and we parted ways, and we were up to clue 4, but we didn't have the confirmation to really know. But you knew the rough location within a certain amount of feet, and then it came out, some rumors came out, and then you leaked that you thought you knew the finder and some information, and me and Cynthia were going, what's going on? We want to stay anonymous. Don't say anything. It feels like the finder might be panicking a little bit. What's your sense of what the finder's going through right now?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you it's completely my opinion because I do not know this information for fact. But 2 things. I believe that the finder so me, let's say the 4 of us, it was you, me, Mike, and Cynthia. You and me go out and find it. And Mike and Cynthia still have some information, but me and you have all the information. We're trying to sell the story. So Cynthia goes out and shares it. Cynthia and I have had some falling outs even since all of this has happened. So Cynthia goes out and says something, and I've said something sometimes that she isn't appreciative of. And I would see it both ways, but I don't know the finder to know. I could see the finder saying, I'm pissed off. You and I are pissed off at Cynthia. Why would you go and say something? The other half would be, great. It was to drum up information and getting this back and lively. And damn, this is back and lively. So though I'm maybe not happy, hey, or I'm totally okay with it. This did exactly, I thought my article would get some hubbub. Man, this has gotten more hubbub because,
So maybe Cynthia and Mike have said to us, oh, well, you might not have liked it, but there are some good things about it,
right.
And we've come round to it and gone, oh, okay, then maybe it's okay.
Or let's think about it. If it's a reasonable person, let's say it's you and Mike that found it. Mike might be saying, hey, I'm okay with it because all we wanted is it to be out. It's not going to hurt our story. It might even help. We're now getting calls. We now might be, if it's me, I'm going to be dramatic and say, why'd you do that? And da-da-da. He would be like, end game, this has helped us. So I'm not worried at all. Yeah. So I don't know. Is the finder, I don't think maybe the finder expected it, but I don't know. I don't know.
Do you think at the very least it's probably changed what they had planned? So they were clearly coming back off the back of the Medium article. Do you think it's stalled them coming back, made them rethink it a bit, or at least altered their course?
I don't think they were stalled. I think they were stalled by their process. They had to wait until Forrest passed. I don't think they understood the communications process of getting something on Netflix, how you have to get an agent, how you this, how you that. I think that Finder article was the first opportunity they had to get that story drummed up, etc., to get a deal out. And I think the deal has just started. The dealings are still going to take a while. Even if
are they more about coverage or selling of the chest?
Yes, in my opinion, yes.
But both of those, like money for publicity and stuff.
Money for publicity. That's I think why they're sharing the story. They're not a collector. They want to sell the story. They want to sell the chest. And think about this. This is interesting to me. You and I, Mike and Cynthia, that breaks off. You and I say, let's go out 50-50. You can't get over here. I'll go out. I'm getting so many messages. I'm sorry. I now have it in my possession. Now you and I talk. Okay, we solved it. What's 50-50? Are my costs of going boots on the ground? Wait, you want to sell your story? I didn't think about the story. Wait, you want to stay anonymous and so do I, but I was the one that have the rental car records. How much do we sit back just in case that happens? wait, when are we coming out with, Forrest wants to come see both of us. Well, he only really wants to see me because I discovered it. What about you? Oh, you can't come up. Think about all the nuances that you didn't put out into paper on, oh, wait, I want one item from the chest. Well, no, we said we were going to sell it in whole. Well, not the autobiography. I don't know if any of those discussions happened, but I was just thinking, I mean, Mike and I, it would be easy. Mike and I could just, it's all his and mine. It's kind of ours. But if I'm partnered and I believe the partnership is outside of a couple, I believe there's more than one in the group that found it.
And there's distance between them as well?
I don't know. I don't know at all.
Yeah.
But I think, let's just say it was you and I. Think about how many nuances we didn't talk about. Think about if you and Cynthia, when you guys went out, you guys said you're going to split, I'm sure, something, even if it's 70, 30, 50, 50. There was probably 100 things you didn't discuss.
Yeah.
Yep. So
absolutely. Does the source know anything about Forrest's intentions for the chest from the finder?
What do you mean by that? I don't understand.
So the article suggests something like Forrest wanted it to be sold to a museum or something. It wasn't said, was it? But it was insinuated. Does the source know that information?
I don't know for sure. I believe yes.
Okay. And do you know if have they given progress on that? Because I guess if that falls through, it's just a normal auction after that, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what, like, is there a backup plan if they don't? Like, so I already know this from my own, and I posted something on Facebook. We have a documentary that we have in work right now. Oh my gosh. There's so many pop-ups. I'm sorry. Okay. So we have our own documentary. We have had kind of a big team come to us that has lots of available expertise that also has come to us and said, we not only want your story, we would like your footage, we would like this, that, the other. Then we've had a very small documentarian come to us, small meaning kind of one-man show that says, I have the expertise, you then could have complete creative control, which we kind of already have with our own documentary, but our own documentary is having a couple of issues very specific to the people involved. And then we have somebody that just says, will you just sell us everything and we'll take it. I've already ruled out the sell everything. I don't want the sell part. I want the story. I want a positive story. So there's the three options. Which one do you take? Maybe if, let's say, Netflix says we'll give you 50 grand for the story to the finder. We'll give you 50 grand to the story, but you just give it all to us. Maybe they have National Geographic that says we'll let you tell the story exactly like you want, but we're only going to give you 10 grand. And there might be additional zeros. I have no idea. There is so much to think through, and your priority might be different than my priority. And this is what takes so long. Now you're having to agree and figure it out. And maybe you have a lawyer and I have a lawyer. I agree with you, but our lawyers are like, oh, there's some liability here. And, this is all, it all gets complicated.
It takes time then, doesn't it? It takes a long time. Do you think that the finder wants to get the story out, or would be content just selling the chest and then moving on?
Oh no, I think it's sell and move on. And I think they alluded to that in the finder's story.
It felt like that, didn't it?
Forrest wanted him out. He didn't have time or opportunity. I'm not sure which. He wants to sell it. He's not a collector. He wants to sell. He has student loans and this and that. And I believe that whole reason for the story was not for us. It was to get drummed up business to sell the story. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm not saying it in a terrible way. I don't think it's the person Forrest expected. I think they turn and burn. They want to sell the story, and they want to be done with this crazy community. That's it. I think that's it.
Well, my views changed over, since 2017 till now. The amount of crazy people that have come out, I wouldn't want to be known. I really wouldn't. I'd want to get as much as I could, and then that'd be it, done. So I can understand that. Whereas at the start, I didn't think that. I did think that it'd just be come out and it'd be innocent and there'd be no problems. But some ruthless people out there. Crikey, absolutely terrible. So did the source reply to your email there? did they give you...
There's lots happening. I'll just say that.
Have we got breaking news?
Oh, and I know Mike's in there. Mike, just start banning, please. I don't want timeout after timeout after timeout. Let's just ban. If they're getting that nasty, I wouldn't time out. So there's some people that I'm not saying the average person that just disagrees with the solve. Oh my God, I would be banning 90% of you, and including Brit. That's not it. It's the passing a line. Just come on, guys. Let's just get adjusted.
Time to grow up. If you're jealous, you need to seriously take a look at yourself. It's not befitting of an adult, is it? Let's be honest.
All I would say is, if you're that upset about this, it's okay. You can say, I disagree with this, not some of the things that are being said. I don't think Mike and I deserve to be hurt, or Cynthia deserve to be hurt. I don't think this destroys Fenn's legacy, that we were that important. I don't think any of that. I don't think Forrest or Peggy or Zoe deserve to be hurt. Again, if you disagree with that, you shouldn't be on this channel. That's what we believe. That's just, and that's okay. That I don't think it's okay, but you should just go elsewhere. That's all.
What's Susie saying there? She got a call from Netflix. Is that right, Susie?
Just got a call between the finder and the source about how they are going to sell on Netflix. That would be awesome. Yeah. So, and if some are working with the source, maybe that, and it looks like by that comment, just got a call between the finder and the source about how they're going to sell it on Netflix. So I didn't think Susie believed in this solve. So I think it's awesome if the source and the finder now are working with Susie to get some more information out. That's awesome. She has a YouTube channel. Hey, you know what? It doesn't matter who broke it or who's been talking about it or whatever. I think it's awesome if that's information getting out. I have to tell you, I don't care if it's $30. I'm buying that Netflix or whatever it is, whatever documentary, whatever it is. I'm not a TV person, but if they're talking with different channels, that's awesome. So
absolutely. Do you think it's big then for America in general? I know there's lots of different types of documentaries going on to Netflix now. We get a lot of them in the UK as well. Do you think it's a big thing now for America to hear about it in general, outside of the community?
So all of that is dependent on one thing for me. Well, there's two pieces to that, because I've talked to a few documentarians, and especially the last couple of weeks, of what's next. I think how it's sold is going to be a big one. I think what happens with the family, I'm hoping nothing. But that's the big one. That story, I think, is going to be larger than life. I don't think it's just going to be a random spot. I don't think like Sitting Bull's Peace Pipe, that particular, but something that big. So I do think if the big story comes out, if the story doesn't, if it goes with the auction, I don't know.
It was just a joke, Susie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was being serious. I did not know you guys were joking. I apologize. I thought Susie was saying about Netflix. I swear I saw yeah. Okay. So maybe it was a sarcastic thing that Susie posted, and then I didn't realize the sarcasm. I don't
think Susie would. But I have to say, I'm outraged now, so I'm going to speak to my lawyer, and there'll be people speaking to you. So
oh my gosh.
okay.
I apologize.
Seriously, I am outraged. I've never been this angry.
Okay. So. Oh goodness. If that was just a funny. Okay, this is why I should not be looking at chat. I apologize. I was a little confused because I was like, I didn't think Susie was a fan of this solution, and how is she talking with the finder and the source? But that's awesome if she is. And that was just all shenanigans. Okay, that was just fun. It was funny. Oh goodness gracious!
They caught us out. They caught us out. Damn.
Okay. I'm glad we saw it, because I was actually thinking maybe this is why there's so many messages coming in. Okay, Paper was just having fun. No, I was actually just. Okay. Paper does that with me too.
What is the one thing that I've not asked the question that you've got the answer to that it'd be good to get out there?
One of the questions that I've gotten a lot is, why would this source even say anything? And I think the source, in the same frame of mind as Mike and I think they were able to get closure. And if you've been in this long enough, I think that's important. And I think we might have miscalculated that, but I think the source is genuine. He's not trying to sell it. He's not like, we made what, $2 or $12 off of the off of the video. We didn't sell that to scoop it. It was a genuine. I think the source is genuine. I don't want to say anything more. There's some irony in what I'm saying. I believe there was a lot of genuineness in why this is coming out, and I think we completely flubbed it all along the way. Not only that, I think looking back, should we have not said anything until we had kind of a perfect solve and a perfect this and a perfect that, I would have loved to do that, but we didn't. And looking back, let's see what else. Hold on one second. What have been said about found in Yellowstone not turned into the Rangers? Well, Nova Land, thank you for the super chat. There was a discussion that Cynthia had. I think it was on Amy Seek's channel. It might have been another one, AGK. I think it was Amy Seek's though, that she asked Forrest exactly that. And Forrest said, you would need to turn it into him and him return it to you. Do you have legal rights to it if it's found in the park? Because it's considered a lost item. So that is how he gets around it being found and not turned into a ranger, because the ranger is supposed to do the same thing after 30 days notification, all of that. That person was able to do that directly.
I assume it's the same as if you and Mike went to Yellowstone and me and Tamsin were coming with you, 2 cars. We got there. You were leaving 2 days before us, but you lost your wedding ring or something, and then we found it. We knew it was yours. We wouldn't say, "Oh, we'll take it to the ranger." We'd say, "Well, we know whose it is. We'll take it back to you," and that makes sense. I presume it's along those lines, and Forrest
right. So
sought
if
legal advice on that.
So let's say Yellowstone catches wind of all this, or the finder comes out and says, yep, it was in Yellowstone. Yellowstone would have said it was a lost item that should have been returned to us, that we got to Forrest. But since Forrest got it back and Forrest then gave it to you, there's nothing we can do. Maybe there is no legal question.
Yeah. You would have presumed that he's covered that with his
I
lawyer.
would say, and I don't know this 100% for sure, but recent information of what the one unknown item was. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Go on. What will it take?
Mike
How
is
much
gonna
super
have
chat?
to...
That'll get you in trouble now, though. Oh,
I don't know
what have I
enough
done?
to know. I am clarifying before sharing, but I would say, when you say what's the one question, that would be one. Has this, I don't want to say anything that would expose the source. There's some interesting nuances there that actually fill stuff in. What percent chance did we think when Cynthia and I were driving up that we were going to find the spot? We were like maybe 10, and that we actually found it. I've found a treasure before, but it's only been a $1,500 one. It felt it felt exciting. I was pumped.
My first thought was, because you were looking for the pictures, weren't you? You were looking for the vantage points.
Exactly.
And my first gut feel was there just excitement in finding that, and that emotion reaction got mixed up with everything, and then it's hard to separate them, isn't it?
That's exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And then I was thinking, because my first thought was, why does Cynthia think this is right then? And I wondered if it was that, but there's other information, stuff you can't share.
There's one particular picture that pretty much solidified it. I believe Mike was probably convinced before us. I believe, this is my opinion about someone else, I believe Justin was convinced once Tucker sat. That was his defining moment, which no one else, I wasn't even convinced, because I was like, he just sat in front of you. He's like, no, He does not sit unless there is bronze. I was like, oh, I didn't have the background he did.
What did Justin think when he saw the same picture that gave you that reaction? Did he feel differently about it? Or?
I haven't. We were actually. I wasn't in front of him. That trip was already over, so I have not had a direct discussion with him, which I need to. Yeah.
Is he in the chat? It'd be good to know actually if he's still in the chat. What
I think he's actually traveling. He might be in the chat a little bit, but I think he is literally traveling right now.
Right.
So I don't. Yeah.
If he is about, it'd be good to know his percentage chance. You're 99%, so there's a 1% chance of wiggle room that if something wasn't quite right or if it isn't right at all. It'd be good to know where he is on that certainty level as well. Because Cynthia's just 100%.
The one thing that's not completely clarified is the exact spot versus the fake blaze.
Yeah.
Could have been at the fake blaze where the fake blaze is those trees. I don't think so, but there's a little bit of back and forth about, but we're basically like, this is the area because but the one picture, it's just.
So explain that discrepancy with the picture then. Imagine it was near but not there. Just explain how the picture that's so convincing still applies, whether it's there or just so many feet away.
Because the picture that is so convincing, it's obvious that it's at that exact spot.
Could it be that is miles away somehow? No.
Not that. So we spent a lot of time with wood grains, wood knots. That Nook picture matches exactly. It doesn't match kind of a little. It matches, in my opinion. And I'm not a botanist or an archaeologist or no PhD in whatever it takes to just from the naked eye. But we spent a lot of time making sure that was an actual match. I would go 100%. So in the corner of the finder's picture of the treasure chest, there's a little bit of a tree and it just has one little knot and wood grains. I do have to say there were hours spent trying to match that up in the 2 or 3 trees in the area. Oh, I wish it would have matched, because that would have made it 100. That would have made it 100. If I was sitting here with 100% match between the finder's picture and that picture that we found, would you even be able to go, what? No, that absolutely matches then.
What about this then? So before you went, you had a certain amount of communication from the source, and since you've had some as well, if you only had all of that communication before and after, and you hadn't gone to the location, how confident would you be just from the communications? And I know some of it's a little bit difficult because it's based on your experience at the location, but.
Well, and it's a good question, because I do have to say, when Cynthia and I and Justin were sitting there celebrating the night of, having a drink or two going, yes. And I thought, this is so sad because Mike didn't experience this. Mike was the command center. He was giving us coordinate. He was so essential, but he didn't have the same experience. I asked him, are you 99.9? He goes, after all of this and the pictures you guys had, the videos, there were particular things that were of question that we went back, got them. They were able to match up and line up and all that. He's like, I'm convinced, but I have to tell you, he has already said to me, we are going back next year. And I said, why? And he goes, I have to do what you just did. So from an experience standpoint for closure, and he's not even a boots on the ground guy, but he's like, that's the location.
Yeah.
But would it be more convincing if you actually saw it yourself? I don't believe so, because I don't believe the source and Mike either have been to that particular exact spot, and they are both convinced. I'm convinced. Maybe it's like, how much is 100%? There's no such thing as 110% confident. It's just 100%. I think we're all convinced, but we got to experience something that was cool. And I believe we were the first ones after the finder.
Right.
That's what we wanted to do.
One thing that I think I asked it yesterday, I'm not sure if I got the answer or understood it correctly. The log let's say, the fallen tree that's quite old, appears to have someone's foot kicked into it to break it. And we're talking only a few months, aren't we, between when there were pictures where it was whole and then where you've seen it and it's something's gone into it. And it must be someone kicking it, surely. What are your thoughts on that? Or was that where the chest was, maybe?
Well, here's the interesting part. I don't know that, but what I will tell you might help to your answer knowing this. So there was kind of the part in the middle that looked kicked, like you say. I don't know if it's kicked or what the right term is, or broken. And then there was two, and it looked like little holes on each side. The two little holes on each side, when you touch it, the dirt was really loose. It was almost like it was filled back in just with like pine needles. That part in the middle that looked kind of kicked in, it was hard, almost like a mud pack, and the mud pack had dried. It was hard to the touch. I've sat and gone in circles. Why would that be a hard mud pack in the middle and soft on each side? What we grabbed were the pine needles from each of those two areas and a little bit out of the front area, but we weren't going to dig because that's illegal. That middle area was a hard mud pack and it felt hard. So we're like, this couldn't have been there from the note. So we didn't know if the treasure chest was on one of the sides or the other. I don't know what the answer is, but that kind of hopefully answers something to it, or you could surmise something from it. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah. How big was that sort of clearing area, roughly? What, 10 feet diameter? Or?
What do you mean the clearing area?
So it's between the two blazed trees, I guess. It almost looks like a circular area, doesn't it? How big was that?
That's on the back end of it. I would say it's probably, well, I know. Let's see. It would be about 7 feet.
Right. But it was quite unique, was it, in terms of clearing?
Let's say if you were a taller man and you laid down to see exactly how far it's apart, you would fit.
Okay.
Not that you did that, but
well, maybe next year. You never know.
Well, somebody asked me, could you put a hammock between there? You could, and an adult man could be there in a hammock. I don't know if that ever did. There was no indications that ever happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look who's here.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Did you guys get it all figured out? Everything's solved?
We've solved it all. It's final. Everyone in the chat room's happy. We've heard that the community are happy.
Everyone's happy. Everyone.
Sleep good tonight?
I don't think anyone's happy.
So one thing, and first off, Michael O'Connell, our condolences. Hang in there.
I'm sorry, what happened? I haven't been watching chat.
He said his younger brother passed away. So
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, condolences.
So sorry. Michael, you're such a good person, and I'm so sorry. My heart goes to you.
Somebody said, well, Kyle wasn't a real boots on the ground, wasn't a real searcher, because no boots on the ground. You know what? Maybe there's truth to that. But what I consider myself is a real researcher. In other words, I'm going to have to make the clues line up before I go out. And I couldn't make them line up, not to my satisfaction, to actually go take the trip. So, that's on me. That's why.
Well, wait, now somebody else told me I didn't have enough boots on the grounds in Wyoming. I had one in Wyoming and I had 5 or 6 total. They got really angry at me and said, I went out, 500 times and you only went out once. And there's a scrapbook about me and there's not a scrapbook about you. If that helps you, yes, and I actually got a little pissy and I said, wait a minute. Just because I didn't go out 500 times, and there was a little irony because this was a person that Mike and I had donated I thought 4 figures to their family when they had a family member in need. I'm a working mom. I was not able to go out 500-600 times. I was actually jealous of Cynthia, who was able to go out as much as she went out. So I don't apologize. I don't think I'm less of a treasure hunter because I didn't go out and fail as many times as other people did. I don't knock them if they're able to. I'm jealous, but you're not a better treasure hunter because guess what? You don't have the treasure chest. I don't have the treasure chest. I'm sick of apologizing for people that are jealous, angry, whatever it is. And they still believe in their other search states, which is fine. But I don't think Mike's Mike's found treasures, just not Forrest Fenn's, but neither did any of us. So, except for one person or a couple people. So anyway, I think it's funny, the human behavior side of it now, of I'm mad at Mike and Christy for having a solution. And Christy's not enough because she only went 5 times. Mike only went once, but not in the right state or force. None of that matters now, guys. Like, I don't know. I just don't think we should judge. And they put it on hate sites, and now they're saying like, oh, she's saying, I don't care if you disagree with me, but don't say you're a better treasure hunter because you failed more times and spent more money boots on the ground. I just don't agree with that.
They just want attention, don't they? Because they're irrelevant if they can't wind you up to make a comment. And they need to grow up, move on. Seriously.
Yep. And this is where I don't like the idea of I didn't care about the treasure anyway. I cared about the treasure, but I had a great time. And probably the most growth I had is when I went boots on the ground by myself. But my favorite one was with my brother, who we were estranged at the time. And now we're not. We talk every day. So, but that doesn't make me less of a and someone said, your reputation's on the line as a treasure hunter. Great. I'm not a treasure hunter it's just so silly. It's just so silly. So.
Okay. I only got to come twice. So, I only worked for 2.5 years every day trying to solve it, but I'm not a real treasure hunter.
No, you're not real.
No.
You're not real in some people's minds. And I'm like, okay, well, and that I've unfortunately had to kind of unfriend, and some people but if I would have posted their solve as the one we believed in, they would have been okay. And it's like, I don't know. And again, we might be wrong. We reserve the right to be wrong.
It's like going back to school, isn't it? All over again. And we thought we got over that.
Yeah. My daughter said this. I actually showed her one of the sites that it's like every single thread's about Mike and I. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm only in 8th grade, Mom. This is worse. Like, I grew out of this 3 years ago. And I was like, exactly, baby. Just know it doesn't. It continues forever. So she was like, that's so 10 years old. And I was like, okay. So that's what it'll be. It'll be the 10-year-old site, not the because by the time you're 13, you've grown out of that. So
did you guys talk about the blaze, the 2 trees at all?
Well, do you know what I didn't ask actually was how old do people think they look? It looked quite bubbled at the end. And I'm just wondering whether that's more than even 10 years.
Oh, the blaze?
Yeah.
Well, I saw this, and I don't know if we've showed this or not, but I thought this was pretty cool. This is on Reddit. Basically, it says, an old Indian mark on a tree. And apparently, their designs, Indians, this was a known way that they would blaze a tree.
Right.
So Indians had a system of blazes by which they used to find trails in difficult places. Following are some Indian trail blazes common in central Idaho. But I just wonder, the 2 blazes, or the 2 markings on that tree, they look like this, and it's just interesting.
They look like campsite more so, do they?
Right.
Yeah.
So if those blazes were already there, Forrest said he was always going to make it work. He considers it's his spot, blah blah blah. If those blazes were already there on those 2 trees, I wonder if that's part of the story. Why he said there's a story, but he's not going to say what it is. He's going to leave that up to the finder. I wonder if there was something that happened there. But that's why it's his special spot, because he realizes what the history was, whether it had to do with DeLacy and Brown or Indians or whatever. We're never going to know until somebody releases it. But I just wonder if that spot was special because of those 2 marks in the trees, and if that was the history of whatever went on there. But just a guess.
So, Mike, I didn't get to see all of the hoopla that has been happening on the emails and stuff. Do you want to share that? Is that going to be tomorrow's show, or do you want to wait and talk about it?
What are we talking about?
Oh, you've got to release it now. Now I'm on it.
Park. I just got home. What
do you know? Okay, hold on.
I see one here that I've not read yet from an hour ago. Is that? Looks like somebody's putting out a book. I don't think that's it, is it?
There you go. Look, check your text.
Text. Okay. Yeah, I was at the park with the boys. Yeah.
And when he says the boys, he means all 3 boys. There's 3 boys.
Right. Because we don't have that. Like, we can't.
Okay.
Wait on that until we have something. I hope we do a show on it, but
I didn't know if it came through as an attachment or not. If it comes through as an attachment, okay.
No. We got nothing yet.
Okay, so we have nothing, and until it's 100%, because when we put it out, when it's 90%, people lose their mind. So yeah, if that comes in, I will be very excited. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So what do you think, Jono? I haven't really heard your thoughts. I know you were on this Zoom last night. GTC did 11 hours plus an after party, which is awesome. And then you guys have been talking, but I have not heard any of it. So what do you think of the numbers?
I think what I don't know, but me trusting yours, K-Pro, Cynthia's judgment on it probably is more convincing because it's an underwhelming solve, more so. Am I willing to accept it's the solve with it being underwhelming? I am, yeah. It just is underwhelming. But I could see how it is. Yeah, absolutely. When I think back to it being a small scale hunt for Forrest, it isn't this big thing it's become when he conceived of it. It was a small scale piece. It really was. And that's fine. It would fit. And I think he could easily have got to the point where he thought no one's going to solve it in any good time whilst I'm alive. So I can just embellish and make it seem bigger. And that's fine. So
underwhelming. What do you mean by that?
Okay, wait. Can I answer that first?
Yeah.
Britt Chaser is a kitchen sink imagination person like me. You love this solve because it's a code breaker, like a definitive. Okay, that's my answer. I saw your children's book, and I love. If Forrest would have had a children's book connection through a children's book, I thought I would be so excited. I don't like coordinates. What do you mean? That's not fun. Mike would like, oh, that's it. So, but no, let's let Britt Chaser answer too.
I think so. Even with the children's book piece aside, the amount of things that were on the map and linked to hints and stuff, it just felt really full and really well done and amazing as a puzzle book. And I often thought, well, this would be great if we had another hunt like this, and this was a new style of puzzle. But now this is like, oh no, it was just a boring solve. What a shame. That's the kind of feel. But yes, it could have been.
So you don't think there were 9 literal clues as well? You don't think he could have double encoded it like that?
I just think, why, if you could just do that?
Right.
What's the point if you can just do that?
Oh, that's a good point. Why would he double encode it? In other words, if the 9 literal clues or the 9 numbers, if both get you to the same spot, why double encode?
Yeah. I quite like if it's the answer to the first clue, because otherwise it's like, what else are you going to use? And everyone used different things, didn't they? But if you could find an exact spot for the first clue, that's probably really good. And then you go through the final 8. That would have been a really, really good one as well. But if it is the absolute final place, then it's like, oh, right. But it does fit, doesn't it? I guess his interpretation was, we'll think, oh, why didn't I think of that? I'm left thinking, oh, it's a bit rubbish, that, isn't it? But, it is.
And I feel exactly like Britt on the actual solution. And I still feel excited to have closure and this and that. But I thought, I wish it was something different. I wish it was something that connected more in the way that I thought it would. It is more of a Mike type of solve. Like Mike's like, of course, it's kind of like try the wheel. You just line up and you this and that.
But
and I'm like,
in my opinion, it's not the same. You had to manipulate the poem to try the wheel. I don't believe you have to manipulate the poem to get the numbers, but I do like it. Yeah. And Yellowstone, Tony Rusi just said Yellowstone is not underwhelming. And I agree. If Forrest reason for doing this was to get people to enjoy nature, what better place than Yellowstone, which was his spot.
Yellowstone's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. One of my first solves was in Yellowstone up past Mammoth Hot Springs on Bunsen Peak. And Bunsen Peak, and the massive rock jutting out was the flame on the Bunsen burner, and that was the blaze, and there was a certain way to do it. So, Yellowstone's one of the best places on earth, absolutely. I mean, the only bits that if you could add on to this to make it a bit better, if there was a way to be more certain. I was saying earlier that if I'd have found this and I wasn't finding it, I'd have lost faith in it very quickly. I wouldn't have carried on for 25 more trips or even more. I'd have just thrown it away as, well, I've got it wrong. But if there was something like with the scrapbook where he said, was it the dog ate the mushrooms and he just, because he didn't know the rules, he did it wrong. If there is a way to find the rules and then you start layering that on, then it might be good, actually, because it's all about building a confirmation then. That could make it an okay solve at the minute at this point.
for me, the reason to look for numbers, the reason that latitude, longitude is a possibility is when he says 9 clues if followed precisely. I don't think figuring out where warm waters halt, let's say where warm waters halt at a big lake, which way do I go from that lake? North, south, east, west. Go down the canyon. What if there's multiple, put in below the home of Brown.
Yeah.
South. Which way do I go? It's not precise. The 9 literal clues are not precise, but latitude.
I like that about it. I do like that exactness.
And
okay, Copper Dan.
Pilot. I mean, Copper Dan with the super chat. Go ahead and read it, K-Pro.
What was genius about this was the misdirection. He had us chasing after metaphorical clues when real clues were right in front of our faces. And only if we know the whole story can we say the misdirection piece. Billy Shaw Jr. asked a question of all 3 of us. Would any of you be willing to visit another spot if the solve was convincing enough? Let me tell you something. The solve was not the convincing part. It was the story, information, all aligning at a certain time, pictures, etc. Please, and a lot of people have asked, just read my solve. Mine's so much better than this one. It wasn't just a random solve. It was all the other context that made it convincing. Now, if you have, let's say Shiloh reached out to me directly and said, here's the actual finder, here's the actual, and I confirmed in a way that it was actually Shiloh, and there was pictures of the actual treasure chest and the guy going like this. Okay, with some GPS coordinates, maybe, but right now it was everything else. It wasn't just a solution. There were so many great solutions. Really, really good solutions.
Like you said, did you say that you were 10% at the start and then it built up from there? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
So, and that's where the rest of us are, aren't we? And me asking all these questions moves me on a little bit more. And I could accept this. I could accept it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Lucky, I would like to read your solve just because I think your mind works in a great way. Isa Lake, because it's closest to the coordinates. Yes, I do have to say that is why we came up with Isa. And as I've gone alone in there, it was right there. It was that was the only reason.
But for me, that's not it. It's because Isa Lake is on the Continental Divide and that's where water halts. It's not,
But it had to be something nearby. It had to be something. And once you see all the reasons, and Isa spelled backwards is as the first.
But what else is nearby? Madison Junction's nearby. The fire hole's nearby. Any of those have been popular where warm water halts. You take your pick, but I don't need those because I've figured out the coordinates to take you precisely.
Yeah.
Isa's a nice one, isn't it? Because you've got as I start, butterfly, flutterby, begin it where, well, if it is the poem, maybe you begin it at that. That is quite nice if it's Isa.
For me, the real confirmer for me is using decimal degrees with these numbers from the poem. It takes you to a spot that has 2 trees with these 2 blazes on them. I mean, that's a hell of a coincidence.
It's a hell of a coincidence. It's a hell of a coincidence.
Yeah.
No, the only thing I can think is I've thought a lot about those 2 trees. I think the trees are nice, but not necessary. I think the GPS coordinates are necessary because if this didn't get solved for 100 years, those trees may not be there. So I think the trees being there now, it can't be a coincidence. But I think they're actually the blaze? I think the blaze, I lean more towards the blaze is the exact GPS coordinates.
The only reason I ask how old do you think they look is imagine in 2012, someone went there, solved this, got to that location, thought they'd, some people have created fake blazes, haven't they? I'm sure a load of people have, and I haven't, just for the record. But they could have gone there and they could have done this on the trees. And then if that represents 8 years worth of growth around it, then maybe they've gone, right, this is how we send them in the wrong direction. There was this one place I found and I carved something in trees. I'll send them there. It could be feasible.
Well, I want that to be that needs to be 1,000 feet away from where we were at. And that's what we jogged back. So we went 1,400 feet from the trail or 1,300 feet. We jogged back 1,000. I was looking for something like that 1,000 feet back.
I wonder, so if this is the blaze, or these are the blaze, then the finder found a fake blaze. Was that another carving on a tree? And were they convinced that the blaze would be a carving on the tree through something they found in getting confidence?
I'd love this. I mean, there's story enough right there in the finder's journey. I want to know about the finder's journey. That would be interesting enough for me to buy whatever it is. Now, for a wider audience like Netflix, maybe. I mean, God, I walked through Tiger King and Cocaine Island. I can't get those minutes back in my life. So Mike's really into these weird documentaries of different stories and stuff. I just want to hear the finder stories. I do it.
McMillions about how they scam Monopoly at McDonald's. I'd watch a Forrest Fenn thing, good or bad. Somebody said there's going to be a bad documentary about Forrest. I'm gonna watch that too. We're going to do a live watch party or something.
I want to know which Netflix documentary would make the most money. One about the crazy people in the chase, or one about the finder.
Alan Kay has got. He put the quote from Forrest. Says there are many places where warm waters halt, and nearly all of them are north of Santa Fe. He says that rules out the Continental Divide, but you didn't put the rest of the quote. If I'm remembering correctly, the quote was, there are many places where warm waters halt, and nearly all of them are north of Santa Fe. Look at the big picture. To me, the big picture of the Rocky Mountains is the Continental Divide.
Right.
All the waters halt. If you go backwards from the ocean up, or you could say it's all where it begins if you go down. But I thought he said, look at the big picture after that sentence. And to me, that points to the Continental Divide. Now, the other issue is, but the Continental Divide runs all along the Rockies. Why Isa Lake? Because in the poem, as I is Isa. Wouldn't that be a confirmer that you're in the right spot? I don't know. I mean, it kind of makes sense to me. But
if he's got to work his way back from that location, he's got to find something that's not so obvious, hasn't he? So he's got the spot. He's got to work his way back. So Isa Lake's as good as any to not be a big obvious feature.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and just because we do have one being a little more public, Chris, I appreciate that you think you're the finder. We have some information, what we think the finder would know. If you can provide that to us, I will absolutely listen to your story. I will not listen to full solves. There are some particular things that I would, and I get that right. So if you believe you are the finder, and a lot of you do, just like there was 40 or so that felt that you had the treasure chest. If you still feel you're the finder, there's some information that we know that can help confirm that. Not your solve. Your solve, there's lots of great solves out there. There's some particular information. Easiest one, send a picture with the treasure chest.
Yeah, just get the dragon bracelet, stick it by your face, and then get the nugget, and it's dead easy.
Everybody,
it is dead easy. Hashtag.
I'm confused.
Easy.
If you're the finder, prove it. That's all you have to do is prove it. Yeah. And if you can't because you don't have the treasure chest, then you're not the finder. You may think you have the correct solution, but don't say you're the finder.
This is it.
But somebody in the chat said, "Go ahead."
There we go. No, just there's the bracelet. You just kind of do that.
There it is.
Really easy.
Yeah, right. Easy.
Just in case they didn't know,
I did not work Famous Gamer. Put it up again. But somebody in the chat said if there was another solve that looked just as good or something like that, would you go with that one or would you look into that one? I would. If there was another solve. The problem is every other solve we've gotten is where warm waters halt is this lake or this hot spring. And the question is, how do you know that's the right one? You don't. That's why it's not precise.
Do you know what it is, though? I was thinking about this. A lot of people put a lot of time into the solves, didn't they? And the lack of closure, and I feel this actually, all the hard work and there's no outlet for it. Yeah. And I wonder if someone just wants to set up a website where it's one page, you put your solve, there's a big long list, and everyone can go on and have a look at your solve. And
we did that. We did that on Thor. There's about 100 people that did. Another couple hundred people wanted to keep it private and emailed us. And so it's up there. And the problem is it's not getting as much. They believe if they come on the show, they could be convincing and they could do it. We're not willing to do the next 100 shows. That doesn't make it wrong. Start your channel. It's free. Start a channel and do it. Here's a question, and I think it's an important one. Holly says, what made you turn off the trail where you did to find the trees/nook? That is the exact place that Dry Creek and the trail intersect, which is exactly the first coordinate. So you're going down the trail, and you go off the trail right where DeLacy Trail intersects with Dry Creek. No paddle up your creek. That's where you go. That's where you get off trail. Right when you get off trail, another, I don't know, however many feet, is where Dry Creek and something else. I can't do it by memory. But why do you get off the trail? Because right at that location, it is literally 1,400 feet straight off of that, or 13, 12. I don't know the exact number. That's the intersection between DeLacy Creek and Dry Trail. Your end is ever drawing nigh. Drawing, there is a draw there. I didn't know what a draw was. Had to have Cynthia and Justin tell me. And there's no paddle up your creek, Dry Creek, right there. That's the intersection. Exactly the correct first coordinate. That is your, I think it's latitude is the first one. That's your exact latitude. You never get off that latitude once you get off the trail. It's a straight line. Putting the next
famous gamer. I don't understand your question. He says, why aren't people drawing on the poem? If you want to solve the poem, we have to draw on it. You mean literally draw on it? I don't understand what you're saying. Why would you think that? So yeah. And somebody said, and Chris Hurst, I don't know what the Lewis and Clark cipher is. If you want to email it to me, I'll take a look. But if you send it to us before,
oh, do not send it. Don't. I know you tried. I'm not doing ciphers.
Well, no, you can send it to me. What he said was this quote unquote cipher leads you to the exact same area, the exact same location, but I don't know what that is. So, but yeah, as somebody else said, well, if I share my solve or you keep it quiet, you can send your solve, but I'm going to tell you what I actually think of it. And probably a lot of people aren't.
Don't send it to me though. I can't go through. I have probably 20 in the last week of, if you like that one, it's not as good. I can't read through that. And I know you're passionate and I'm okay. Just, yeah. Godelkin saying, I never said that I have the treasure chest, Godelkin. No, I don't think Godelkin. I think Godelkin said he saw it, but you have to do something before you're allowed to get it or something. I think he said he saw it, but I don't think Godelkin is not one of them that ever said he absolutely has the treasure chest in hand. So I don't believe that. And if I'm helping validate someone else, that's just, yeah.
Marty Bird says, physics tells me the chest is wet. Was the nook wet when you were there, K-Pro?
When I was there, no, but I believe the wet comment was the whole humidity thing because of the comment he made at Fembury, the comment he made to Cynthia about the back of her home when it was, and he's like, I don't believe that's interpreted in the same way as literally being wet. It could have been wet though, because it was hard at that it seemed like there was mud in that nook area, and I don't know how, but it could have.
Those little baggies they showed in the pictures had moisture on them, right? I mean, to me, that's how it's wet, condensation. The lid was not locked, right. So water could have got in from when it rained or whatever. So
yeah. I've never seen it. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember Godelkin solve enough. I know it was up in the Cody area, I think, or in that area. I think it was in the right state. I don't remember all of these. I just don't remember enough. Solar Flare says, but K-Pro doesn't have the trust. Right. But we're on our channel and we're discussing our theory. This is still a theory. It's not 100% the solution. And we get to, I know many think we're the news source for it. So Mike and I are not allowed to have an opinion. And that's wrong. You're wrong if you think that. You're wrong.
I got an opinion. I think the finder should come out with the solution and put it all to rest. That's my opinion. He or she can still remain anonymous, but I think, and maybe they're trying, maybe they are going to try and publish it somehow, some way. You know, it would be perfect. Expedition Unknown, Josh Gates, let him go through the solve and explain it. And the finder is never there. Never, you know what I mean? Like I'd watch it. That'd be awesome.
No, I think it should be Britt Chaser. I think he obviously shows he can have I think at the end of the day, Britt Chaser is saying, I don't like this solution, but the people involved and the limited information I have, it seems like there's something to this. Mm-hmm. He's not saying yes. Oh, you picked a yes man to come on. No, I think he's more saying, I still don't like it, but I'm going to start to digest it because there's enough here. And if there's more, so finder, pick Britt Chaser. And because his voice alone is just fun. So, and his accent.
Well, hang on, John Woodward. John Woodward says, I doubt Josh Gates would touch this solve. So if the finder came out and said, this is the correct solve, it's a double encoding. There's 9 literal clues, isolate, whatever, Brown, because of DeLacy, whatever. And there's these, why would Josh Gates not report on that? Why would you say Josh Gates would be disappointed and say, oh, whatever it is.
Yeah,
as long as the finder can prove to him they are the finder and they have the chest, he would put out whatever the story is, right?
Yeah. I have to be somewhere in about 10 minutes, so I have to bid good night. If anybody goes on live later, I'm going to be tied up for a couple hours. But Thank you, Jono. I'll let you guys continue to talk if you want to, but I have to step out. I'm about 5 minutes over from when I was supposed to be. I have a more important place to be, and it's not even close. So I have to go. So
No, I'll go with you because it's almost 1, and it's been an absolute pleasure. But I'm
yeah.
going to go and get some sleep because I'm going to be absolutely useless in work tomorrow otherwise. So
I hear you.
Okay.
Hey, thanks.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay.
Well, you guys
Brilliant.
head out. I'll wrap up. And
Okay.
yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. World
Nice.
famous gamer. Forrest Fenn said he felt
Okay.
like an architect drawing the poem. So if we put it in a grid, because architects work with grids, then connect the clues by drawing lines, it'll take us to the spot. Well, I disagree, world famous gamer. I mean, that's just, I don't think that's correct. Just like you may not think latitude, longitude's correct, and that's okay. Yeah. So, yeah, Luck Rider, thank you guys for watching. K-Pro just had a, hey, let's go live. I want to talk to Jono about some things. And I said, okay, I'm going to the park, but okay. So, Bobby D says, Forrest would have known that search and rescue would have found him there in less than 48 hours. Where? The spot, the latitude, longitude? Why would they need to? Oh, you're saying because of latitude, longitude? You were talking about Vietnam War. I'm not sure the context of what you're saying, Bobby, but all I know is Forrest definitely knows about latitude, longitude. Thanks to Randy Pischel and thanks to Lou B, who's a pilot, who reached out and said pilots use decimal degrees. That's how we do things. Lou B is a pilot. He's also a searcher. He sent me his flight plan. It showed the waypoints in decimal degrees, and he's like, check that out. See if that fits, and it fit like a glove on the location. It fit exactly on the location. So, hey, you guys, check yourself before you wreck yourself. All right, everybody, I'm going to get off. Thanks for tuning in. I think we're still going live tomorrow. Tomorrow is Monday. Monday night is the K-Pro Cow Powwow. Don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'm sure we're going to have something. How about a Zoom for tonight, everybody? I want to get back to Beacon Star. We got a couple other things to talk about. So let's do a Zoom in a couple hours. Maybe let's shoot for 8 p.m. That's in 3 hours. All you guys that are on my Zoom list, let's shoot for a Zoom around 8 p.m. in 3 hours. Read previous message to K-Pro. I don't know if I have time, Bobby, to go back through the chat. Yeah, anyway, we can talk about it on the Zoom. All right, everybody, thanks a lot. We're going to sign it off. And